My parents were new immigrants to Australia. My father could speak a little bit of English and my mum none. At the age of 14 months, I contracted polio and we were living in Carlton. My mother, from the story that I was told, that I was walking up the corridor and then all of a sudden I couldn't walk anymore. So they went into panic and they called a neighbour and they rushed me to the Children's Hospital where I was diagnosed with polio. I spent some time there in a double Thomas splint and then I was taken home. Came home and the neighbours rallied. All the neighbours rallied. We had no family here, no support, no language. And my older brother, who's 6 years older than me, looked after me. He was like a dad. In the double Thomas splint, I remember lying in the bedroom and the window curtain blowing, and Mum would wrap me with the bandages at night, and that's how I slept. And so to this day, I like being wrapped up tight, which is a really strange thing. I like my shoes being tight. I like having that comfort around me that I'm safe. I used to see Dame Jean McNamara, who was the doctor in Victoria for polio survivors. She used to tell my mother that not to mollycoddle your daughter. My mother probably didn't understand the word she was saying, but just not to wrap her up in cotton wool. She needs to get up and do things. She's actually a lazy child and she should be scrubbing the floors. So I have lived with lazy, and I have documents dating back to 64 where the doctors referred to me as being an obese child. So I've lived with obesity, lazy all my life. So they're things that I don't often think about, but when I get restless and I get agitated that I need to do things, that comes back to my mind. In 2000, I started to notice that I couldn't walk and I was finding it difficult to get around. And this was having many years of walking normally, or as normal for me, participating. I walked all of Europe and I walked all of America and Canada and England. It was just like nothing could stop me. I went to the gym and I had I could walk around the block. I could not ride a bike. I could never do that, but I did lots of things and life was normal, like I participated in sports at school. And then all of a sudden I couldn't walk and I thought, something's not right here. So I went to a neurologist. He said, you've got post-polio syndrome and I suggest you go and see Dr. Stephen de Graaf, and because he deals with this. And so I've been seeing Stephen de Graaf since the year 2000. So I've been his patient for 22 years. And I've got progressively worse, tired, fatigued, and finding things really challenging. Some people don't even acknowledge that they've had polio. So that's the other thing. We don't know how many polio survivors there are, a quantitative number. We believe there's 40,000, but I was speaking to someone the other day and I said, we were talking about the ABS, and I said, do you put down the Australian Bureau of Statistics? The statistics, they ask you, do you have a disability? But it doesn't ask you what sort of disability. It's very generic. So it's very difficult. And some people were shy. Some people didn't want to talk about it, that they've got a disability, or that they even had polio, or they didn't even know they had polio. They're not even sure because their parents have died. These are elderly people. So I said to her, she said, I never even thought about putting down, I don't just regard myself as having a disability. And so how can we, when we want to show the government how many people there are with people with disability and with polio, it's very difficult to get those figures. We live in a better time for people with disability, but there's a hell of a lot needs to be done. We know ourselves what's best for us, right? You know, health professionals don't listen And so that's what's important, that we need to tell them what works for us. You know, we're not textbook. You can talk to a room of 10 people of polio survivors. Each and every one of us will have different conditions and requirements. It's hard to talk about tough times. And, you know, you get emotional, you get upset. I readjust my life after every little episode, not every little, every episode of going backwards. I readjust how I need to live my life and I just move on. That's what I do. And that's what gives me the strength to keep going. I can't sit still for very long. I've got, you know, I need to be busy. I need to be with people, and that's what I thrive on. Health professionals, whether they're doctors, occupational therapists, allied health professionals, need to look at the person as a whole, not holistically with the medication, but as a whole, because with people with polio, there are reverberating issues that happen. It's not just the polio leg or the polio arm, it affects other parts of your body. So you have to eliminate that it's not polio, or it is the polio, or it's something else. You can't put everything, oh, you've had polio, so that's why you're like that. That doesn't always work. But that's where the doctors and all the allied health professionals come in, and they have to work as a team. But in that team is the crucial person, the polio patient. That's the crucial element. And without them, you're not going to get an answer, because they know best, and they understand their bodies, and they know what they're going through. That's what's important. The new thing is now co-design, right? The co-design. It's about us being part of the decision-making for the future of polio survivors, right? We need to be part of the conversation, not an able-bodied person talking on our behalf on what's needed and what they think. We have to bring to the table what we want. It's not about ageing, it's about disability and various disabilities. And we're talking about a cohort of people who have polio, who need to be treated in certain ways. Don't go to the textbook. When I've been stopped in the street or somewhere and they say, what's wrong with you? As a child, not as a child, in the 2000s, I used to say I had a Boer War injury, because I was embarrassed to say that I had polio. But now I'm not. I'm proud to say, not proud, but I don't hide behind the facade that I haven't got it, but I have polio. And they say, I thought you can't get polio anymore. And I said, well, I got it when I was 14 months and I'm still have polio. And this is what I'm suffering with, are the late effects. But it's interesting because it's not a live thing anymore, and most people have been vaccinated, they don't think about it, right? It's not like any other unfortunate disease. So we're the hidden and the forgotten people, but we're all still here, all have achieved and have contributed to society and have been part of the community. I don't think I even realised how much the polio has given me the strength to get through things. That's given me, despite the disability, it's given me the strength and the courage to get on with life. The doctor said to my mum, don't mollycoddle her. So what does that mean? That means she wanted me, my mother, to make sure that I lived a normal life. And that's what's probably the love and the care that my parents instilled in me and my brother in me has given me that strength to do what I'm doing and what I want to do for the community. That's what powers me on.